Da-da-da-da-da-da.
We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB throughout the championship meet. The Gulfstream Park Championship meet runs now through the early April Florida Derby weekend, featuring high-quality racing throughout. Once again, we'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship.
On every screen.
Broadcasting live, this is the Handicappers Report, brought to you by the Clubhouse Racebook, 711 Central Avenue, Albany, and CapitalOTBBet.com, the premier online wagering site in New York State. CapitalOTBBet.com. Sign up today.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Handicappers Report alongside Seth, Merrow. I am Anthony Mormino on this gigantic South Florida day. You know it's huge when it wipes out racing across America. We will be here for about 45 minutes and then sending it live to Gulfstream Park as it is breakfast in South Florida, I guess.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll jump right into it this morning. Before we do that, though, did just want to quickly hit on a couple of things. Also today, don't want it to get lost under the radar, but at Oaklawn, they have a nice stakes day, too. It'll be highlighted by the Southwest.
Did you see the purse for that?
What are we talking?
That used to be like $125,000
their whole series
stakes.
Well, not only their whole series, their whole meet with when they put the casino down there.
$750,000 for the first leg of the trilogy.
Yeah. No, it's become, and because of that, they get a field of 9. And Arabian Night is the highlight for Bob Baffert, who broke the maiden in the debut on Breeders' Cup weekend at Keeneland. John Velasquez in for the mount. Corona Belt for Brad Cox looks a little interesting with a 2-for-2 record, including the Sugar Bowl. Manny Franco on another Brad Cox runner, hit show. So didn't want that to get lost in the shuffle. That'll be about just a little before 6 o'clock our time, the Southwest today.
And you can tell, that used to be a President's Day weekend race. That was like kind of when their series got serious, underway. The other thing I was saying to Seth when he came in, 52 or 53 pages for Gulfstream Park today. 13 races, gets underway at 10:50. You ready to...
Well, I just wanted to hit on one more thing because I didn't really touch on it yesterday at all, but Thursday night, the Eclipse Awards. And there really weren't any surprises. I mean, we had talked about it earlier. Right. I had mentioned it a few times. There were a couple of categories I thought were interesting. 3-year-olds, I went with Epicenter. Epicenter was likely a winner, but I was interested to see where the votes would turn out.
Just about where I thought they'd be.
Yeah.
Modern Games, 18 votes.
It wasn't a slam dunk. The 2-year-olds were. There were, how many voters? There were 246 people voted. So Forte on the 2-year-old male got 243. Wonder Wheel got 240. Mark Cassie on the show a couple weeks ago was funny because I said to him, hey, I think I don't want to jinx you, but I think in a couple of weeks you're going to wind up with a horse with the Eclipse Award. He said, yeah, if I don't get it, I'm retiring.
Well, somehow a couple other interesting votes
but
there.
But they were a couple of slam dunks. Epicenter not so much, but he was clearly ahead of Taba. I was curious how close that would get with Taba winning late. It was 155 to 66, and yeah, Modern Games third with the 18. Although Modern Games comes up with the turf male, and that was an interesting category.
Yeah, I think the one that most interests me, because I truly think the Eclipse Award voters got it completely wrong, is Warlike Goddess is the champ. And she got thrashed, which I expected. But that just goes to that's my emphasis on how, I've said this many times before, and this is not the day, maybe next week, but I'm just not a believer that 245 people follow this game 300 days a year.
Well,
I mean, she had the type of campaign that we yearn for, and I mean, my goodness, for 2 years, she's been everything we haven't had in this country, really ever, is a long-winded mare that just throttles the opponents. And she came in, what, third?
Yeah.
She got thrashed.
Yeah. The two
Legal
Chad
Glory
horses, an Italian and a Warlike Goddess, 96 to 51 to 47. So the notable also, Flightline doesn't sweep. Flightline gets 239. There were 4 abstentions, and you wonder about those. But you're not supposed to vote for a category where you have a connection. And I wonder maybe, who knows? Some of those voters may be into West Point horses. That
I
could
don't
be
know.
possible. The abstentions, you don't know, but somebody voted.
I don't
for
think you
country-
should have a vote.
Somebody voted for Country Grammar, which life is good in Maleth. That I still over Flightline.
And I start to
Country
see there
Grammar.
is some rumblings about these abstentions in the steeplechase, which I have to say that if I had a vote, I do not, I would be one of those people. But I start to see some almost shaming and hate Twitter stuff for the abstentions. What was there, 40, 42 of them?
29.
29. I'm like, it's a different sport. I'm like, I'm not following.
I mean,
I know.
I think you can come up with. It doesn't bother me necessarily, but I do think.
Let me ask you a question. Outside of Saratoga, do you follow it? I wouldn't.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would.
I actually do. I like the
I mean-
steeplechase. They have the big day down at
Fairhill,
Bar-
right? Yeah, that's the other thing. That's the only thing I know about steeplechase. They have a
But
big
the early
meet.
part of the season, South Carolina. And,
Yeah, but I don't watch.
they used to have a big day down in Tampa too. That disappeared, unfortunately. But yeah, so it was Irod Ortiz, jockey, Todd Pletcher in a tight one over Chad Brown, 108 to 95. He becomes the trainer, and Jose Gomez, the New York apprentice.
And the one thing I said years ago, because Apprentice seems to be the only other place where they abstain. And the year that Drayden Van Dyke won it, I'm like, he's at Santa Anita. How are you not following this meet?
And
I mean, it's not like he's at Mountaineer. He's at Santa Anita.
I'd like to see him somehow change the apprentice so people looked at the year preceding them losing the apprentice maybe. It's a funny category where you're really comparing apples to oranges. With some apprentices have almost a whole season, some you're looking at only 6 months. It's a funny category.
And we talked about how little coverage there is nationally, like in local papers. How do they get 240 voters?
Well, it's the National Turf Writers and Broadcasters.
Well, there's no turf writers.
Daily Racing. Well, that's why they added. It used to just be the National Turf Writers. The organization a few years ago became and Broadcasters. Daily Racing Forum, and then Racing Officials are the third group. So
Fewer racetracks. Interesting. Great day of racing. Kind of perks up January. What's it, about 7, 8 years old now?
yeah, that's something.
Arrogate, right?
Yeah,
He was the first one. Let's kick off Gulfstream Park and their tremendous Pegasus Day before they come on our air at 9:50. The opener, mile on the turf, fillies and mares.
3, 5, 2, and 10. I'll put Watch It on top. Todd Pletcher, trainee. Laid off from March until the middle of December. Came back and broke the maiden with a nice effort. You would think this horse will be able to move up into this condition and follow that up with a nice effort. Second spot on Alert. The Shug trainee comes out of a couple of stakes races last March and April. So the question mark for this one will be, can this horse come back and be as successful in return as Watch It was a few weeks back? But on Alert, certainly what we've seen so far says that's a possibility. Probably has to move forward, but being a lightly raced 4-year-old coming off a little bit of a break, I don't think that's out of the question. And then Breaker of Change. This one hasn't been seen since December 26th of 2021. So also from a long layoff, but fired a 92 buyer in the Tropical Park Oaks when last seen. again, lightly raced, maybe has the possibility to come back improve, but there's some question marks on all these. Interesting way to start the card. I have a 3, 5, 2, and 10.
And they only take, the 16 horses. I wonder how many people had entered. They might have had like 35 entrants because they cut it off at 16 because of the saddle clause. On to the second, 3-year-olds maiden special weights, racing 7.
1, 6, 9, and 3. I'm going to put Dark Vector on top. Boltioro, we all know, good sire, first-time runners. Last year had 74 first-time starters, 12 winners, 9 seconds, 9 thirds. Really good numbers. There's a sibling called Forbidden Kingdom that won the first 2, and then subsequently over the first 5 starts of the career also included a couple of stakes. So I thought there was good win early breeding top and bottom. It's George Weaver, Randy Hill and company. We'll put Dark Vector on top. Second slot, Foxburg by Arrogate. Spent $300,000 for this one. Right up the turnpike at Saratoga in 2021. LRE Racing. It's our friend Lee Einseiler, so certainly want to root for this one. Had a sibling called Sugar Smile that won its career debut, albeit at Penn National and a maiden claimer, but it was a debut win, so we'll throw Foxburg into the mix and then Perform in the third spot. I have a couple of first-time starters on top, but experience does count, and the Shug trainee does have some experience that matches up nicely with the others in here who have already run. So in the second, I'm going to go 1, 6, 9, and 3.
You know, I know Foxburg is at Payson, but that many bullets for a Bill Mott debut runner. On to the third, 11 furlongs on the turf, optional claimers, non-winners to 2 other than.
11, 7, 9, and 1, one-night standards going out for Mike Maker. Leaves from the 11, but it is a 3-turn race, so there should be plenty of time. It's Jose Ortiz. Last couple were moved off the turf. Now, last time that meant going over to the synthetic. At Churchill, 2-back was on the dirt, so I'm going to kind of draw a line for that Claiming Crown race. But on the synthetic last time was okay. The turf races a little further down are all right. Like a lot of the races here at Gulfstream today, this is a competitive one, so we're taking a little bit of a pop here. And again, I'm not thrilled with the outside post, but there should be plenty of time to find some position. Ready for the Lady goes out for Roger Atfield. Roger Atfield, of course, based up in Canada most of the year, and this one was last seen middle of November up at Woodbine on the synthetic. But again, you go down the page, there are some nice turf races, including the one 3-back at this 1 3/8 distance, which was a nice win in the Singspiel. So I would think this one should appreciate the trip, the distance, the surface. Ever Dangerous, coming out of a couple of mile races. That's the question mark here, stretching back out, but has done well going a little longer, a little further down the page. Irod Ortiz on board, that attracted my attention as well. In the third for me, 11, 7, 9, and 1.
On to the fourth race, a handicap race, not a starter handicap, but an old-fashioned, the kind of races Forgo would run in, going 1.70 miles on the Tapeta.
For $100,000. I have it 3, 5, 6, and 7. I'm going to put Cafe Society on top. Again, a Shug trainee that you go down the page, has tried Stakes Company in the past, and a couple starts back was in the Presque Isle Masters and ran a decent little second with a closing kick. Last time was off the turf over at Tampa and ran decently. But again, going back to that synthetic try at Presque Isle, I think this one's going to be interesting today on the synthetic at Gulfstream. And, again, nice, fun, competitive race, but I thought this horse, going back to that Presque Isle Masters, was worth taking a little bit of a look at. Iliogami in the second spot. Question mark here is this horse on the page is far more dirt, has no synthetic starts, does have some turf starts, but just seemed to be in some pretty good form. So I'll put my trust in Rusty Arnold, the trainer, to be making a crafty move, perhaps Luis Saez on board, but there is the surface question mark to be answered. Keeper of Time goes out for Brendan Walsh off some turf starts, including a stakes race last time. There is a synthetic start in the record that was a nice win right here at Gulfstream in one of these handicap races last year. I'm assuming on this day last year. Again, it was the end of January. So I always like kind of the year-to-year similar moves from trainers. So Keeper of Time, worth a look with Tyler Gaffalione on board in the 4th at Gulfstream, 3, 5, 6, and 7.
On to the 5th, a mile on the turf. Optional claimers in for 25 or 1X.
11, 4, 2, and 6. Again, not thrilled with the post position at this mile trip on the turf, being towards the outside with the 11. But I thought the Safi Joseph runner was in good form, comes off the claim for Safi. I think getting back to a level that is going to hit this one squarely in the eye, comes in with a bullet workout. There was just plenty of things to like. The post wasn't one of them, but I think this horse maybe has enough talent to overcome that. Second spot, Axhelm. Obviously a lightly raced 4-year-old. The last couple of starts were stakes races against 3-year-olds only, but this horse did start the career with 3 races against 3-year-olds and up, and ran very well. And I think the number this horse typically throws are going to match up very nicely with this group. And it is another Safi Joseph runner, like my top pick. Chasing the Crown goes out for Mike Maker. First 3 starts of career, February, April, and May. So this one hasn't been seen in a while. But those first 3 starts were very good. Seemed to indicate there was some promise. Obviously, there was some issue. The horse has been on the sidelines for a while. But boy, you look at those workouts, and you go back to middle of December and into early January. It's, the workouts seem to indicate this horse is going to come back on his toes. And given what we saw early, that could make Chasing the Crown very tough in here. In the 5th, I have an 11, 4, 2, and 6.
There's a couple races annually that always make me think of Calder, and 2 of them are today. And the 6th race is one of them. Fillies and Mares, a mile and a half on the turf, the La Proviante.
5, 6, 2, and 4. I wouldn't argue anyone off the 1 either, but I put the Brad Cox trainee from Godolphin Adventuring on top. Joel Rosario is going to be on board. He was on board last time in the Cardinal, finished 3rd behind the very talented Delica in there. That Cardinal is one of those races that year in and year out I think kind of is worth following horses coming out of. It seems to be productive. You go 3 and 4 starts back, won in an off-the-turfer, a little stakes race at Mountaineer, but then went over to Kentucky Downs and won a Grade 3. Tends to be right up in the thick of things early, and at a mile and a half, that kind of a situation can always be dangerous if they start loping along. You want to be closer to the front than not. Second spot, Transient. Last time on the front end in a stakes race up at Woodbine, led most of the way before getting caught. Nice winner, 2 back in a rich allowance race at Belmont at Aqueduct. Ran 2nd prior to that up at Saratoga. So, again, a horse coming in very good form. It's a Safi Joseph trainee, Tyler Gaffalione on board. Plenty of things to like. Personal best in the 3rd spot. 3rd in the Tropical Park Oaks last time. And, again, that was an off-the-turfer moving to the synthetic. But the turf record prior is very, very good. Always in the hunt in 8 career starts. Has only missed the board once, and that was the career debut. So personal best, Shug, Irod Ortiz in the mix as well. 6th at Gulfstream, 5, 6, 2, and 4.
How often do we get to say this? At 1:50 in the afternoon, the 7th race will be up. The 2nd division of the handicap race at a mile and 70 on the Tapeta.
I have it 7, 6, 3, and 5. I'm going to put Summer Assault on top, going out for Mike Maker, Joel Rosario on board. Started the middle of September at Kentucky Downs, then took a couple months off, came down here to Gulfstream. Nice win in the first start at Gulfstream, decent little 2nd last time out. That was an off-the-turfer, moved to the synthetic, a race 2 back. The win was on the synthetic, so again, has experience on the surface, comes in with nice work, makes sense. Into the Sunrise in the 2nd spot. Nice win on the turf last time for Mark Cassie on the move down to Gulfstream. That seems to bode well. Luis Saez sticks on board. And Ramsey Solution. Very lightly raced over the past couple of seasons, and that left me a little bit leery. but seems to run pretty well when the horse does get to the racetrack. Now, last time, maybe not so much, but that was over at Kentucky Downs in a rich stakes race, so I'm going to kind of forgive that. But you look down the last half a dozen or so, even with the stops and starts, they've been okay, so I think you have to have the horse in the mix. For me in the 7th, I have it 7, 6, 3, and 5.
On to the 8th race, the Grade 2, 7 furlong inside information.
I have 4, 7, 1, and 3.
You're a believer. I bring this up because we had this discussion about her when I made the return, and I had the feeling after the Churchill Downs race that you were a believer that she would go onward, and I have been a non-believer since the test.
I'm barely a believer, and I spent a lot of time looking for an alternative.
I'm not. I mean,
couldn't find one in here. I just thought if she runs her race, she probably has a little bit of an edge on this bunch. But I say that without a lot of confidence and with trepidation. Didn't really show up at all in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint.
I'd love to know what horizontal players are doing with her. She is so hard to trust.
You
have to have her.
But I would not. Yeah, if you're playing horizontal, this is no single for me by any. As I say, I was looking for an alternative, but didn't really see anything. Mary, quite contrary to me, coming off of that win last time. That was a pretty solid win there in the Rampart, and seemed to indicate she could be a player in here, albeit it kind of sticks out off the page. Now, maybe in career start number 6, she just kind of got that good. And I say got that good by the number. I mean, 5 wins and 6 starts, so she had shown plenty of talent before. But the number sticks out, and as being a number that matches up with obligatory. So we'll see what we get from her off of that one last time. And then Famed in the 3rd spot comes in off a stakes win at Remington for Brad Cox. And again, probably obligatory would have to falter a little bit, and Fame might have to step up, but I don't think that's totally out of the question.
Yeah.
In the 8, 4, 7, 1, and 3.
I mean, I'm just out, but you're right. Obligatory does stand over the field on numbers, but and it's probably the softest field she's run against in a while, so she's probably in a good position. On to the 9th race. I mentioned races that always make me think of Calder, and the McKnight for the boys going 1.5 miles on the turf is race 9.
And I'm just kind of looking up here, see if I can pull it up fast, because they put out a graphic yesterday of some guaranteed pools. I will continue. My computer is looking in that file slowly. And there are some picks that are worth knowing about, pick plays that are worth knowing about.
Sure.
I'll try to pull that up. I have this McKnight 9, 11, 7, and 4.
Which, by the way, the 9th race starts the 50-cent pick 5.
Yeah.
Pick 5.
Here we go.
It's got to be gigantic.
The late pick 5 is
This one?
$750,000 pool. The late pick 4, a $750,000 pool. And the Pegasus pick 3 is a $350,000.
There you go. Which are all starting now in the next race and the next race.
9, 11, 7, and 4 for me in the 9th, the McKnight. I have it Value Engineering on top. Mike Maker trainee comes out of the Jerkins last time at 1 mile and 5/8. That was moved over to the synthetic, but has plenty of good turf action underneath to kind of key on. Jose Ortiz on board the win in the Jerkins, back on board again today, so I'll tilt in that direction. Red Knight, last out, tried the Breeders' Cup turf. Didn't show much that day. 34-1 finished 11th, but before that in the Sycamore at Keeneland, wound up 8th, but by less than 2 lengths. And 3 and 4 starts back, nice wins in some stakes races, Kentucky Downs and Colonial. So again, the last couple, well, the last race, the Breeders' Cup. But other than that, Red Knight, I think, becomes very interesting and playable, particularly with Ira Ortiz on board. And then in the 3rd spot, I'm going to go with number 7, Channel Maker. Red Knight, 9 years old. Channel Maker, 9 years old. We see if we can get the geriatric set to make things interesting. I just looked at Channel Maker with the 0 in 5 starts at Gulfstream and was not thrilled. But I think talent-wise, probably fits in here. So I put the Belmont trainee in the mix. But again, maybe a little bit of a negative horse for a course angle. In the 9th, I have a 9, 11, 7, and 4.
And on the 10th race, kicking off the late pick 4, the Fred Hooper at the Dirt 1 turn, 1 mile.
Fred, was that also a Calder Stakes race, the Hooper?
Well,
Seems
here's
like
the
that would have
thing.
been about that time of year.
It would be, but this is what I get. I'm guessing, if I can remember right, this might be one of those races that has had literally 3 or 4 different names at Gulfstream
right.
Park.
Yeah, you might
at
be
one
right.
point, I think it was the Creme Fraiche. It's just gone through a lot of evolutions, and Fred Hooper was a Florida guy. But you're right. But I think this is actually a long time handicap race at Gulfstream.
12, 5, 3, and 2. Number 12, Prevalence. This is one of those funny horses that started the career with a lot of promise and never lived up to it and kind of bounced around and occasionally gets back to, where you think, oh, okay, now we're kind of seeing. This is, again, I say I like the year-to-year kind of situations, though, when trainers kind of go back and do something they did. And that's kind of what I was keen on a little bit with Prevalence. You go back last year, Prevalence came from a May layoff 2021 to February of 2022, went in an optional claimer and ran 5th. And then in a much improved effort, came back a few weeks later right here at Gulfstream, going this mile trip and won very nicely with, a solid 99 buyer. It seems like not the same, but a kind of similar scenario here off the New Year's Eve race, perhaps. This horse has won 3 times in 5 starts at Gulfstream, so I'll see if we can string a couple together at Gulfstream, similar to what happened earlier last year. Hoist the Gold in the 2nd spot, Dallas Stewart trainee. Tried the Malibu last time. The Steel Valley Sprint before that. You look down, this has been a little bit of a world traveler. Santa Anita, Mahoning, Keeneland, and Churchill in the last 4 starts. Going back to the Kentucky starts, they were pretty good. The Malibu was an okay 3rd behind Taba, and the numbers all match up nicely in here. Mish with the early speed, the Safi Joseph runner on the cutback to the 1-turn mile off the mile and a 16th last time. I think with that early speed in the cutback, Mish could be intriguing as well. 10th at Gulfstream, the Fred Hooper, 12, 5, 3, and 2.
No, you were right. This is the old Tropical Park handicap. I was thinking of like races like the Broward that are now the Skip Away, etc. But this was a good call, Seth. Very good.
I was thinking
Fred Hooper, Tropical Park,
time of year.
which I'm guessing at one time might have been a Tropical Park race.
Oh yeah.
People don't remember I was little, but the Tropical Park closed and Calder took their races. On to the 11th.
I don't remember Tropical Park at all.
It probably closed like 72, 73.
That was
Just
probably about the time I was
it
just
was
starting
little.
to get into it.
The kicking off the Pegasus races, the fillies and mares on the turf at a mile and a 16.
And unfortunately, I remember, and people who also remember it fondly, and it's still, but Hialeah, that people talk about that track in glowing terms, and unfortunately that went away too.
Yeah.
9, 3, 2, and 6 for me in the 11th, the Pegasus World Cup filly and mare turf. And again, this is going to kick off that Pegasus pick 3. That'll be a fun pick 3 to take a shot at. 50-cent bet, $350,000 guaranteed in the pool. I'm going to go 9, 3, 2, and 6. I'll put Shantasara on top. Beaten favorite last time, and beaten favorite with an effort that just has you kind of scratching your head. But again, it's one of those, it's one race. Do I make a decision on one race? Now, normally I may give this situation a little more weight in that it was off a layoff. And see, did the horse go the wrong way? Well, it's Chad Brown, Michael Dubb and company, and with these connections, I'll look for the rebound today for Shantasara. Wakanaka in the 2nd spot, Bill Mott trainee. That same race that Shantasara ran 5th as the beaten favorite, Wakanaka won for Bill Mott and company. Joe Rosario on board that day, back on board again today. And the aforementioned Dalika, I talked a little bit about her earlier, having won the Cardinal. I think I read this is her career Swan Song, I think. I have to double check that, but coming off a nice win. She is always dangerous on the front end, and I would guess that'll be the game plan again today. Far as she can, as fast as she can, and normally that it can be very productive with 17 exacta finishes in 31 starts. In the filly and mare turf Pegasus, I have it 9, 3, 2, and 6.
I always wondered how much, when they started running year-round in New York, hurt Hialeah.
Oh, well, yeah.
Because everybody just packed up and went. So many horses and everything, but everybody raves about how, I've never was there, but beautiful it was and glorious, etc.
Flamingos in the infield.
Yep, point up entranceway. If you want to see it, you can watch Let It Ride with Richard Dreyfuss.
It makes a
done
lot of
at
those
Hialeah.
black and white movies, too, that, from the day.
Spectacular, they say. 12th race, $1 million, 9 furlongs on the turf, the Pegasus World Cup Turf Invitational.
And a mile and 1/8 down the turf.
I want to say one thing. If Witt wins this race, the tip out of all time on Racing Across America with you and Mike Rapoli.
But we got our,
Well, he's never paid. He's kind of been, Mike was right. They worked him out on the turf when we all thought this was a dirt horse, and Mike said on Seth's show that he really was sharp on the turf, and he has been legitimate to those words. He's only 8-1.
And top of the page, I have written post positions because I have a 12, 11, 10, and 3. I think the 9 is intriguing as well. The West Point runner, Decorated Invader, always like to root for those guys. And I think Decorated Invader's legit. But I put City Man on top. It's just, the 12 is not going to be a bonus, though. But, boy, Dean Reeves, I've said it a number of times, had just a really great year last year. Particularly a good Saratoga, and City Man helped that out, certainly with the win in the Forbidden Apple, and then a pretty good second in the Bernard Baruch. But subsequently ripped off 3 straight wins after that second up at Saratoga. Yeah, the Cole, the Mohawk, a couple of New York bred stakes races. Must be nice to have a New York bred like this, that you can kind of, let's pick up one of those nice juicy New York bred stakes purses, and then go down and pick up a grade 2 at Gulfstream.
New York bred races take care of the expenses for the year.
And then you can pick up a little more. So it was a good performance in prep for this last time. Masterpiece goes out for Safi Joseph. Tossed in a little bit of a clunker in the Breeders' Cup Turf, but races just before that looked pretty good, and I would expect a nice performance this afternoon. And Ivar, going to be interested to see what Ivar goes off at. Ivar,
my top pick in the Breeders' Cup Mile.
People, we've said it many times, people concentrate on those buyers. And on the buyers, do you have the morning line there? I printed up before the morning
4-1, I think.
I'm just curious.
Because he's a horse that I fancy very much, and he's, I think, 4.
You're looking the last 7 starts over 2022 and 2021. Yeah, so he's the morning line favorite,
yes.
I would assume. Because the buyers jump off the page. But he's got 1 win in those last 7 starts, so I was willing to take a little bit of a shot.
He's mostly a miler. He is a miler.
And so I'm taking a little bit of a stand against him.
I
have it 12, 11, 10, and 3.
End at approximately 5:40. Race number 13, the $3 million Pegasus World Cup.
And I looked it up. I was kind of curious. They should be okay. Miami Sunset, 601. So I think they're okay. Maybe they may be racing in the gloaming, as it were, but I think they'll be okay. I went 10, 4, 1, and 7. I put Cyberknife on top. I'm just looking forward to see what he can do now as a 4-year-old, and I think we maybe got a hint of that in the Breeders' Cup race, where really one of the better races of the weekend, the ding-dong battle between Cyberknife and Cody's Wish. So I'm going to put that one on top. Wait Barrio, who certainly likes Gulfstream very, very much, coming out of a nice effort last time as well, with a close-up third in the Cigar Mile. But again, 4 for 4 for Safi Joseph here at Gulfstream. And then Proxy in the 3rd spot. Again, on the buyer numbers, I couldn't ignore this one. But only a couple of starts going back to July. A July start running 3rd in the Foster, and then comes back to win the Clark in November. That one indicated the horse can run well, obviously off a little bit of a layoff, and this is a little bit of a layoff, 2023, not so much so, but again, it was last seen the end of November. Simplification is interesting to me.
He's my pick at a big price. It's a reach, though.
I'm not arguing. Art Collector, I could see doing some. Skippy Longstocking. I think Skippy Longstocking is Brian Edo's play.
Because I think simplification has the Gulfstream Park angle also, but it's going to be a big price in a race that I think is wide open for $3 million. That wraps up the look at Pegasus World Cup Day at Gulfstream Park. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, I'll take a look at the Big A.
Birdstone is an outside front. They're coming down to the finish. Can Smarty Jones hold on? Here comes Birdstone. Birdstone surges past. Birdstone wins the Belmont Stakes. In front, but here comes High Chaparral. High Chaparral, the defending champ, to take it to Bob. These two arch rivals head to head with Joe Hart bearing down on them. It's going to be a three-horse photo finish in the turn. Here's the wire. Photo finish.
What if there was a way to become a better horse player, to have a better knowledge of the game, to be more successful? What if there were a way to take what you've learned, what you know, and make better decisions, better choices? In horse racing, knowledge is a powerful tool. Race results and replays, past performances and live streaming, wagering from all your digital devices. Capital OTB. Become a better horse player.
Capital OTB is now streaming live on Roku. The RTN Racing channel on Roku lets you watch OTB TV live through your Roku device or your Amazon Fire Stick, rather than being limited to computers and mobile devices, which means you can now watch OTB live wherever you are. Simply open Roku, scroll to find the RTN channel, then click on OTB TV. OTB TV on Roku. Try it now.
Welcome back to the Handicappers Report. I just put the Gulfstream Park Pegasus Day card to bed, but there is still plenty of racing action as well. I mentioned earlier, don't forget Oaklawn with that Southwest. They have a couple other nice stakes, but as always, Aqueduct in the mix for us. Anthony will take a look at that, and we'll kick it off. The opener maiden specials going 6.5.
And 4.75 will kick it off for me. I think there's some other firsts that'll take more attention, but Big Elm for Barry Schwartz and Manny Franco, an offspring of Ken Theros, who was an outstanding precocious stallion, makes the debut today at 3 with Lasix. For second, the outside horse, number 7, Treaty Obligation. Chad Brown's runner for Klarovich, the offspring of McLean's Music, I think will draw much attention. And for third, number 5, Registered, David Donk's second-time runner, ran better than odds, was runner-up at 10-1 on debut. That was in the slop. 4.75 in the Big A's opener.
We take a look at some conditional claimers in the second race. $25,000 tags, non-winners of 3 lifetime the condition, and 7 furlongs is the distance.
And tough for a Yankee fan to say, but 7.32. Fenway gets my top pick on the outside. They're adding blinkers, second time off the claim. Good early speed from the outside. I presume Jackie Davis will use that early speed to get terrific position in this race. For second, Charger, Rudy Rodriguez, owner, trainer, sends out this runner off of a third-place finish, shortens up to 7 furlongs. And then Cousin Andrew is 3-2 on the morning line. Seth, you have to go back to the 11 races to find a dirt-fast race for Cousin Andrew, which was a good effort in October of 21 at Belmont, finishing second. Little too dicey for me to take 3-2 on the morning line with Cousin Andrew. So 7-3-2 in the second.
I put Cousin Andrew on top, and I agree with
Yes.
you. But I thought on the class drop, but for me in the morning, and I mentioned a lot in the afternoon, I don't know if you find it the same. I've asked other people. It seems like the last couple of years, the betting public, when they find a favorite, they load up. You
Yes.
look up, and in a race it wouldn't shock me to see this one at 3-5 or something. And at that, you're kind of like, hey.
It is shocking sometimes how much they like the favorite in New York. They just
It's not-
I don't know if
it
it's the
isn't-
Sheets guys or what
It isn't
that
just in New York. I think you might be right. I think it's more glaring in New York.
Right, 'cause you're
But some of these tracks that run the 6,250 bottom level, you look up and you see 3 to 5, and you never should have a 3 to 5.
Not at that level. It's just not reliable.
It's crazy.
I agree.
Third race today, starter allowance, 1.8 the trip.
2, 3, 4 in here, and gut feeling is a 7 to 5 shot that I thought warranted. Draws a good post position here. Has terrific tactical early speed. Second start since being claimed for 50. Ran in the starter allowance, and I've said this before. You know, it's a newer condition. If you've been following Naira racing for 40 plus years, and I think they're very tough. This horse has already competed and run well at it. I have gut feeling on top for second. Achilles heel, and this would often have been the type of horse I'd go to first, but I think this level is a reach a little bit too far. I'm surprised he's back in. He's 10 to 1 for Rudy, and for third, number 4, Curbstone, coming off of an impressive victory. Those were claimers restricted, now starter allowance, 2, 3, 4.
Fourth race this afternoon, we're looking at state-bred maiden claimers, and they'll go 3/4 of a mile.
And I am 9-8-4 here, going to the outside. Derwin's Painter, making the second career start as a 3-year-old, gets Lasix today. Phil Serpi's runner, on debut, ran for the other tag in New York, 25. Ran second at almost 8 to 1. Comes back, runs for the higher $40,000 tag. Jose Lezcano aboard on the outside. I'll take number 9, Derwin's Painter, my top pick. For second, right next door, number 8, Bustin' Hot. Runs for a tag for the first time today. Gets Lasix for the first time as a 3-year-old. I think the race, or the betting, I think, does go through this offspring of Bustin' Stones. And for third, number 4, Greg DePrima sends out this runner for the 6th career start. Has shown early speed previously. Runs for the same level tag, 9-8-4.
And in the fifth race, we're back to starter allowance company. Fillies, mares, 4-year-olds and up, going 7.
I am 8-6-5 on the outside. Cupid's Girl gets my top pick. Jimmy Ryerson sends out this runner. Frankie Pennington, the Park's Sultan of SWAT, gets the call for this runner, who was 0 for 6 at Belmont, but just got beat most recently at this level, going 6 in early December. For second, number 6, Reigning Check, goes out for Pat Reynolds. Was a $35,000 claim. Right off the claim, ran in conditioned claiming races after spending the 30 days in jail, and won with Dylan Davis. Tries to come right back. But as I've said, I'm hoping to actually, I was deciding really after this card, I'm going to do a spreadsheet on how these restricted claiming runners do jumping up the starter allowance. But anecdotally, honestly, it's tough sledding. And this horse is 6 to 1, and I think that's warranted. For third, number 5, Divine Wine, second off the $20,000 claim. First start of the year, 8-6-5.
And you mentioned Frankie Pennington. There have been a number of transplants from Park. The jockey calling this winter in New York is, you get with Dylan Davis, Kendrick, and Manny Franco kind of stand out. Beyond that, some of these I'm completely unfamiliar with.
Yes.
The 6th at Aqueduct, optional claimer, non-winners at 1 turn mile.
3-2-5 for me, and I don't have it in the mix, but I was looking at number 4. The 12 races on the card, 9 of them are this 1-turn dirt mile. Maybe that's doesn't get that very often, but 3-2-5 for me, and Dame Cinco gets my top pick for Rob Atras. Just got beat in the allowance condition, comes back here in for the allowance condition, not the optional claiming price. Dylan Davis gets the mount today. Coming out of the 7 furlong race, we go the mile, 2 races back, won by a pole in the starter allowance mile. For second, I think the danger in the race, number 2, Liam's Kiss, only making the 5th career start. If you throw out the Gulfstream Park race, was like the first race in 9 months. This horse has been very impressive. For third, number 5, Manchi Girl, going out for Mark Henning, coming out of stakes action. 3-2-5 in the 6th.
And 5 is ridden by Jason Hueyas. Speaking of jockeys, there was a nice profile. I was trying to pull it up. Maybe it's on the NYRA website. But I want to say he's like 31 years old and just kind of getting the career underway. And the theme of the article was kind of like, hey, you can always get something.
Never too late.
Yeah, never too late. 7th race at Aqueduct, stakes action at Toboggan, grade 3, 150K, 7 furlongs.
And it used to be the prep on the inner to get to the Carter, to get to the Met. The last time a fleet won a race, it was to Toboggan. 8-2-6. Little Vic, my top pick, going out with blinkers today after just getting beat in the Gravesend on the eve of New Year's Eve. For second, number 2, Pirate Rick. A huge run we are on, and now almost like Goodnight Olive after consecutive allowance races. We're going to try stakes action for Norm Cash, and for third, Repo Rocks. Jamie Ness's runner off of a 2-race win streak, ships in from Parks, but 8-2-6 in the Toboggan.
No, I just found it from a few days ago. It's Dave Brennick in the racing form. People can pull it up. 30 years old, married, a couple of kids, so good for him. 8th race at Aqueduct today.
Usually the life equation you get out of riding horses. Not into it.
State bred allowance for the ladies going 3/4 of a mile.
And we'll get you the Gulfstream, folks. 3, 4, 8. Try it again. I've said this all since Saratoga, folks. The layoff lines I don't care about anymore. Off a year and months. Breaks the maiden. Now gets Lasix. Takes on winners. I'm on the outside with the offspring of Bustin' Stones. Royal Currency, who broke the maiden in the 11th career start. And then first time versus winners was competitive on January 6th. And Fancy Feline, Jimmy Bond's runner, off since November. 3, 4, 8 for me.
And in the 9th at Aqueduct, we're looking at state bred maiden specials. Again, that 1-turn mile.
Yes, 10-5-3 in here. And Maker's Candy gets my top pick. Second career start for the offspring of Twirling Candy. I'd sign up for 6-1 now. For second, factually correct. Rudy Rodriguez runner makes the 4th career start. Never off the board. Gets Lasix. And then number 3, Todd Pletcher's runner. Bourbon Chase, never off the board, makes the 5th career start. 10-5-3. And I think this is an example, as I said, where these 1-mile races have become the route races of the meet. It just seems as if those 1-mile races have become the long-distance race of the inner dirt track season.
And I'm looking at the Gulfstream feed here on my computer. They still have the graphic up with the guaranteed pools. And a reminder, late pick 5 today at Gulfstream, 750,000 guaranteed. The late pick 4, 750,000, and the late pick 3, or the Pegasus pick 3 with those last Pegasus races, $350,000. Hey, Dino, 2-shot. And just before we do wrap it up.
Maybe not.
Just before we do wrap it up, the Southwest, again, I have a 2, 6, 8, and 3 Corona Bolt on top. I'm taking a little shot. The favorite is clearly going to be the Baffert horse. I mean, even money on the morning line.
And we don't have time for today, but they have to make a decision on the Baffert horses.
Yeah.
It's going to be a very interesting topic. We'll touch on it next week a little bit when we have more time. Remember, big day down at Gulfstream Park, which I think is a terrific marketing idea. I mean, January is a slow month. The 3-year-olds are just starting to get underway in what you and I consider the significant races.
And I was watching a podcast earlier this week that was going over the card, and they kind of said, and I would agree with it, I don't know whether there are any of the super big guns on the card, but as you kind of alluded to when you mentioned how many pages, it's a really intriguing betting card.
It's the same type of action you'd have almost on the Saturday of the Breeders' Cup. I mean, it's tremendous in that regard. And you are right about the stat. I mean, if you look at the roster, I know there's some people out there that have been poking fun at the Pegasus World Cup, but if you look at the roster of winners, it's incredible. And no matter who wins it today, is not adding to that list. I mean, someone's going to win the,
Well, Cyberknife, I think, has a chance to turn out to be. We'll see what he does the rest of this season, but
Gunrunner. irrigate,
Yeah,
Williams
no,
map,
no,
life is good.
but
Good luck with that.
Yeah, no,
I mean, and my point is that's the kudos to them because, listen, they, I mean, the first one, the showdown between California Chrome coming back and, I mean, they found a spot. And this year, I think it's safe to say it's a great betting race. I agree with you. I mean, I like Cyberknife, but I don't,
No, you're right when you list the
those winners
I
are.
mean, he can
pretty.
turn out to be a really nice horse.
Yeah.
But he's
He's
probably
not gonna be
elevated
any of those.
to some of those.
So what's your schedule today? You get like a 3-hour break?
No, because they start at 10:50. So, boom, another hour. I'll kick off OTB Live.
Do you eat really quickly?
Eat.
Well, how are you going to have lunch?
I'm on and off, so I
Okay.
squeeze it in.
All right, then. Ladies and gentlemen, enjoy Pegasus World Cup Day. He stays, I go. We'll see you next time. So,
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Off Track Betting.
Welcome, Kelvin Abib. Number 16 linebacker has the services of a young man who has settled back in Cape Town exceptionally well after his Mauritius stint. As stable jockey to the Marshall Yard, he knows this horse well and will be giving him every chance. Here is Cornet Offer. One of the most cheerful visitors of the Cape summer season had steered number 17 Rascallion into the money in the Daily News and Durban July. What will he produce today? Let's hear it for Sean Veal.
We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB throughout the championship meet. The Gulfstream Park Championship meet runs now through the early April Florida Derby weekend, featuring high-quality racing throughout. Once again, we'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship.
pole. And it's now then Wendy in the hands of Jason Hart, having to give weight all round here. To in second position, Casaluna. Then on the outside, Polemon. Berkshire Breeze has been in the 2 wide channel throughout. Then Aristocrats and Ferrobins at the rear of the field. It's beginning to get going again once more. There was a mid-race slowdown there, but they're going to start getting a bit quicker as they turn